Welcome to Travels with Geordie. If this is your first visit, my name is Peter Knowles and I live on this classic wooden motor cruiser here in Victoria, British Columbia, along with the loving memory of my pup Geordie, all the while fixing it up for some pretty major cruising someday. If that's the sort of thing you might like, please consider sticking around and subscribing. We'd love to have you. And the varnishing never ends. This is the first coat on the transom and the cockpit, 2 coats on the main part of the boat, and if I'm lucky I can get a coat every second day, maybe every day if it's good. Let's jump back to where we got to. Well, I can't say I've done a particularly brilliant job of the staining, but that's what I've just got done, and I haven't shown you too much of the sanding and misery and such things on this side because, well, you've seen it all before. So the upside of it is that tomorrow I'm going to get oil on here, and that's it for sanding. From then on it's simply varnishing, well, with the exception of sanding the varnish between each coat, but that's much simpler. It's been a long haul, really long haul. I'm on my 3rd week here now. Varnish, can't wait. Varnish. If you live on a boat, you need a certain amount of tools, and I have a table saw and a router table, but now I have a drill press. The cheapest, smallest, simplest little drill press you can possibly get. And I really only need it to cut bungs, to cut plugs. Now I have a very good friend that lets me use his drill press very nearby, but just to be self-contained and a few other little things, I thought I'd get it. So let's see if this will even cut a bung. Actually reasonably sort of yeah. Do they give me all the tools I need? Where am I gonna keep this? It says it's a 1/2-inch chuck, taper fit. Vroom, vroom. Let's see if we can cut some plugs. So this is a piece of genuine Honduran mahogany that I was very kindly gifted by my good friend Owen. Let's see, I've got it on the slowest speed, how well this cuts. Excited. Sounds great. Oh, not a lot of oomph there. Okay, well, it did do it. I had to cut very slowly, but that is a 3/8 plug cut with a very high quality, very sharp plug cutter that is in good shape. So I could get by with that. Let's try a 5/8. Now my 5/8 plug cutter is a not so high quality, and it is more than a little bit used up. In other words, dull. So let's see if even at the slowest speed I can cut a 5/8 plug. All right then. Well, I'm gonna say that was just fine. I didn't actually quite get low enough there, but it looks like it will cut quite reasonably. All right, love this thing. So to rebung these, now, because there's so much damage around the edges of the holes, I want to drill them out a little bit bigger so I have a crisp edge so I won't see a dark damaged line around it. So I'm going to drill them out to 5/8. And to do that, I'm going to use a brad point bit, which is a very sharp, cuts a very clean edge. And the neat thing, I can do it by creating this little guide block. I can do it right in place and not touch the screw in the case where the screws are okay. So the other thing about using a slightly larger plug now is because I can correct the slight irregularity in the lining up, although in some cases that's not going to be all that possible. So here, let's try our first, and I only just have to touch it. That's all I'll need. Nice crisp edge, nice new bung. Yes, excellent. I'm I'm setting these dry, in other words, no glue, because I believe the immense amount of varnish that will seal those in will look after things. The other thing is I can't find my one-sided saw, so I'm gonna have to chisel these off, which is kind of scary. Excellent. Beauty. There we go. This time tomorrow, you'll never know I sanded that. All right then, folks, it's the moment of truth. It's time to start varnishing. Starboard side is done and oiled and dry. And most importantly, in the shade. It's hotter than heck here today. Okay, so here we go. And just a quick talk about varnish. I'm using Epiphanes. This is actually the thinner and not the varnish, but at least it shows you the brand. And I'm starting to thin up some varnish in here. You have to add quite a lot of the thinner to get it to flow really nicely, which is just fine. And in hot weather like today, you have to keep adding it to keep it to flow really, really nicely. I'm going to talk about varnish a little more later, but in the meantime, I got to get started because this will skin over in here pretty quick. Well, all right then, let's see if this goes as well as last time. Not quite as fun as last time, but equally as effective. Okay. Figure it's time to explain this crazy noise they're doing over here. For a week and a half now, they've been driving piles, and now they've been tossing huge boulders into the ocean. Well, it's a marine habitat reclamation, rehabilitation. In other words, they're doing some dredging in the inner harbor, the upper harbor, and to compensate for that destruction of marine habitat, they have to create a new marine habitat somewhere else, right there. That whole area there, if you've ever seen this at low tide, and I think some of you have, is only about 6 feet deep, even at high tide, and so, I mean at low tide. So I guess they're just creating a big rocky, curly, like, I don't know. Anyway, some of you who know more about fish habitat will know what that's all about. Okay, the wind's come up a bit, which is great. It's helping with the heat, and of course, varnishing isn't nearly as strenuous as sanding. So we're carrying on. Don't worry, I'm not going to show you too much of this. I'm sure you've seen lots of varnishing going swimmingly. I'm just going to keep on it. You guys just carry on with whatever it is you're doing. Okay, varnish both sides, starting to look better and better with every coat. I just love that. So, time to carry on with the cockpit. It's all had oxalic acid and rinsed off and dried out, and time to do some final sanding and get some tung oil on here. Okay, there's some serious deviation of standard refinishing practices coming up. Let's talk about the transom. I've showed you before, this is the good side. It doesn't actually look so bad. Yeah, there's a lot of defects, but it's not great. It just gets worse across here, and by the time you get over here, I'll try not to walk off the back of the swim grid. There's some real big damage here. It's just a mess. So, I have two problems. One, the transom's a mess. The second problem is I need to build a new transom door sometime, and I'd like it to sort of match. Now I have some mahogany. I'm not even sure what it is. It might be Honduran. It's light. It seems to be about right. The grain seems about right, but getting it to match perfectly would be very, very difficult. Because I know I have to replace the transom in the next decade, I'm gonna stain it. I'm going to stain it as an experiment with how staining mahogany works with longevity of the color. Plus, it'll ease out a lot of the sins in here because even after the first stain, I can come back with stain on a brush and I can sort of paint some imperfections. like little bits of white body filler. And it'll allow me, when I build the transom door, to stain match it a bit. And if it's not perfect, I can sand it a little. I'm not an expert at matching stain, but at least once you're staining, you have a chance. So there's more. In this cup is a custom blend of stains and tung oil. It's half tung oil. So this is where it gets worse. I'm going to mop this onto the transom, let it start to set up a little bit, and then I'm going to sand the transom, wet sand it. And I'm going to keep adding more of this, with the idea being the sandings, the dust, the sawdust that I create by sanding will flow around and fill some of the thousands of voids that are in here that I'd rather not do with caulking. All these gaps, all these little chips, all these, and I think it might just give it a more uniform color. It's totally an experiment. We'll see how it goes. Should we try? All right then, so the first thing I'll do is mop it on everywhere to get started. It's gonna be all over this. It's just gonna be a mess, but whoops. Already got it all over myself. Okay, let's see. It is making like a paste. Exactly what I was kind of hoping it would do. Kind of a muddy paste. Let me keep on it. I'm going to be beat long before this is done. Okay, well, after several rubs down and a few false starts with the sanding, and I bailed on the sanding. It is just too much of a mess and too hard to get it to really be effective. Although it did actually fill some voids here, but I'm not that interested in it. But a few rub downs with this combination of stain and oil, and I'm very, very, very pleased with the texture and the color. Absolutely fantastic. Okay, final rub down. Oh yeah. This is the smoke from the Western US wildfires, and although it's annoying here, it just brings on such a sense of empathy in me on what's going on in Washington, Oregon, and California. Just horrific. Hang in there. Alright then, so time to get varnish on the cockpit and the transom, and I'm really feeling pretty cool about the transom. I think this may end up looking just fine. It's possibly a tad too red, but it won't stay red long in the sun. Okay, more varnishing. You know what that looks like. Hey there, I just had to share this with you because it's the day after market day and I've just been to the butcher and the baker. We're gonna make the ultimate BLT. Now, I don't have a history of BLTs, but Lady's Efforts has reignited my passion for a quick, yummy, easy lunch, especially when you have fantastic ingredients. This is really amazing butcher bacon. I'm going to show you fresh sourdough loaf baked this morning, and look at these beautiful, beautiful beef steak tomatoes that we got from the market yesterday, plus some greens, plus all these little candied cherry tomatoes. I love them. Let's get that out of there. Okay, let's get started with this. Nice chunk of butter in the pan. Believe it or not, I fry my bacon in butter. Now, to be fair, the reason I fry my bacon in butter is because it really helps with it not sticking, and because I'm also going to fry the bread in this same pan. We'll just keep that butter floating around. Will you look at that beautiful bacon? Look at that. Oh yeah, yeah. And a little more butter for the second side. Oh, that feels so nice and warm. Basically, I learned about butter frying bread on a farm years and years and years ago, and it's so great, especially for good bread, because it holds the heat in. It doesn't dry it out like a toaster does. Oh, it's gonna be good. Okay, now lots of salt and pepper on the tomatoes. Put them on in advance. Let that kind of soak in a little bit. I like a lot of pepper on everything I eat. I don't know why. There we go. Okay, let's get these on here. A little dab of mayonnaise. Lay the tomatoes on this side. Oh, they barely fit. That's what I like to see, a little hanging off the end tomato action there. Excellent. And the bacon. Oh, yes, 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 yes. Ah, yes. And all the greens I'm going to put over on the other side. You really can't have too many greens. If there's too many, they just fall out. Okay. Okay then, well, awesome. I'm not going to show you eating this thing because eating a BLT is definitely not a tidy affair, but it's going to be yummy, no doubt. It just occurred to me that this is a slightly Western-centric sandwich. I've been calling it a BLT. That's because we referred to this as a bacon, lettuce, and tomato sandwich. So for those of you who never heard of it, this is your first BLT. Bacon, lettuce, and tomato. Cheers. Well, hello and welcome to the Travels with Geordie Beer of the Week, here under this extraordinary cloud of smoke here in Victoria, which of course, as I mentioned before, is the smoke traveling north from the burning western United States. And I just can't imagine how horrific it is for those of you who are suffering under these fires. My heart goes out to you. Let me make then the very first cheers to those of you suffering from these fires. We're going to Quebec, where I grew up, to Unibrow Brewery for their Maudit. And it's funny, when I was a child, that was a swear word, or at least it was an expletive. Anyway, this is a double ale, but what's really fun about it, look, it's got a wire cage cork, like a bottle of champagne. So I can't remember ever having one of these before with the wire cage, so see how this goes. No explosions yet. Excellent. All right, so Maudit from Unibrow in Quebec. I may actually pull, I was going to say I may pull off a decent pour, but no. Well, through the magic of television, I will be able to let this settle out a little bit before I need to have a sip. Check back. All right, then I'm going to call that barely drinkable. Again, Maudit from Unibrow, and cheers to all of you coping with these fires in the western US. Whoa, Maudit. It's quite a beer. It's like a cask beer. It may actually be a cask beer. The writing is way too small for me to read. Anyway, it's yummy, it's really rich, and it has that cask bit of whiskey, bit of a flavor to it. Anyway, really yummy. So additionally, we have a few more people to thank and to cheers. We're going to add in announcing t-shirt winners. A few people have mentioned that I should do that, so this is an opportune weekend to do that. So the winner of the t-shirt from last week is John Kendall. John Kendall, I have sent you a message, but if you haven't received it yet, get in touch with me and we'll make sure you get your t-shirt. Now, there's an additional bonus t-shirt this winter week because a winner a few weeks back, Cullen Bryant, fine fellow who has its own YouTube channel, Dead Elect, you should check it out, is won a t-shirt a little while ago and forgave it and said, no, listen, I've already got one, give it to someone else. So I am, so here we go, we're giving it to Goofy Gentile. Goofy Gentile. If you haven't received the message I've already sent you, get in touch with me because you've won a t-shirt. Very good. So cheers to both of you, and cheers to Cullen for offering that extra t-shirt up. Other than that, we'll move on. We have a new PayPal supporter this week, Barbara Fox, and so thank you very much, Barbara. So glad to have you aboard. I love this thanking. So much beer. Off the Amazon wish list this week, Steve Callner very kindly sent me a spool of the 14.2 marine wire I'll need, and this is really fantastic because I'm going to get going on the wiring right after the engine install, and there's just so many components and they're so expensive, so I'm always very, very grateful for anything in that regard because we can move along with that pretty quickly. Now, there is another person I should thank, similar to Cullen. Rick Miller won a t-shirt recently, and he forgave the coupon, and he said no, let it just be a contribution to the channel. So thank you very much, Rick. Even though he won a t-shirt, he gave up on actually getting it. And that brings us, after I cheers Rick and Steve, and before this plane actually goes to full throttle, you need a word of the week. If you'd like to win a Travels with Geordie t-shirt, use the word smoke in a comment down below, and I'll pick, it's almost on its way. Anyway, and I'll pick through at random over the first week's worth of comments, and if I pick you, you'll get a Travels with Geordie t-shirt. See you next week, and California, Oregon, and Washington, hang in there. I hope some wet weather comes your way.